Afternoon, everyone. Welcome to All Four Queens. Afternoon. I don't. Excuse me. I don't normally do them in the afternoon. I normally do them in the morning. And obviously, with it being Sunday, I wasn't quite sure whether I was going to do one or not. Now, I did do one this morning, but I lost the file, and I take that as a sign that they didn't want me to post it. So it's gone into the abyss somewhere and I can't find it. So when I clarified, I think it's just it probably wasn't the right time, even though it's poignant. It probably just wasn't the right time, so I take heed on that. So one of the things that I said was I was going to do the 7 deadly sins, and this one is about greed. I mean, obviously the flow is there, but one of the things I want to say before I get in, and I hope everyone's doing well this weekend, I tend to just jump straight in, and I don't actually ask you if you're all right, but I think you know that I do mean well. It's just that my mind runs 20 to the dozen when I'm sort of like standing here channeling and trying to get stuff out. So one of the things I want people to understand, I mean, obviously I said in the previous one that, you know, their anger is when I get hyper and that's usually their anger and trying to enforce the point. But I hope that everything that is shared and everything that I talk about on this channel, ultimately it's about healing. It's about, you can't heal unless you're aware. So what I mean by that is sometimes people do things and they may not be aware of what they're doing and how it impacts on somebody else. So if things trigger, it's not necessarily, well, I suppose a trigger is not necessarily a bad thing, because then it means that there's something there that body is telling you need to look at. So for me, you know, when I talk about bullying and abuse, yes, I was bullied, yes, and I was abused. But I also want the bullies and the abusers to understand where they need to heal, and maybe they won't repeat it, because that's a repeating cycle, isn't it? So I'm hoping that we don't just look at it as a one person's wrong, because that's not the oneness, is it? It's more about, yes, they've done wrong, and hopefully from me sharing the story, they'll have time to sit and reflect and realise that actually it isn't fair, it isn't kind to do that to somebody, but then they will go within and then they will awaken and realise why they do what they do, so that they can then heal, if that makes sense. I'm hoping that makes sense. Anyway, greed. So greed can be all sorts of things, can't it? I think, you know, it's not just a case of monetary. It can be food, it can be anything. It can be, you know, excessive of anything. And I think the dictionary actually says having an excessive desire or appetite for food, he scoffs the whole lot, the greedy pig. Now I giggled at that because I thought, you shouldn't be saying greedy pig, really, should you? But hey ho, it is what it is. So that's one of my habits. You know, it's not that I'm greedy, but sometimes and you know, it's all about mindfulness as well, and you know what we've been conditioned to do and how we think. You know, I can't sometimes just have one biscuit. I have to have more than one biscuit, but I don't necessarily need more than one biscuit. So it's about that sort of thing. And then obviously when you get onto the bigger stuff, like, you know, the financial stuff, and then, you know, how you treat people in terms of some of the sinister stuff that goes on, then, you know, we're talking a lot more in terms of depth. And then it says having a showing or an intense and selfish desire for wealth and power. So I think that's where we are in the world, you know, and I think it's changing. I mean, you know, we see a lot of things that are happening now in Hollywood that, you know, like I said in the previous one, you know, for those who have authority to judge, and I think that there are some righteous people in the right places. I just think in the past there wasn't the balance, whereas now I think there is a balance, and people are starting to call judgment and sort of say, no, this is not the way we operate, it's not the way we live. And hopefully, you know, those that have awakened will get on, and those that haven't awakened will see it for what it is and hopefully get on board as well. And one of the things I said about COVID was, for me, COVID was about everybody being locked in. I mean, not taking away those that passed away, of course, but it was to separate the energies. And for me, I mean, I went through my 20 millionth awakening, but probably the more intense awakening that I've probably ever had. And you know, it was an eye-opener for me, but also a lot of things disappear from you as well, and you have to accept that. And then you go through that roller coaster, and you go through the other roller coaster, and then the other roller coaster, all the things that you didn't forget, but they were at the back of your subconscious. You knew about it, you just didn't have concrete proof on it. And that's all the stuff that then you have to process as well. So not everybody has awakened, and some people may not awaken, but the point is to have awareness more than anything of how we operate and how we behave, and the fact that, you know, this is our world to live in, and so how do we want to live in it, really? And how we treat ourselves is a clear reflection on how you treat others. And so, you know, it's really important. And I think some people, and you know, I'm not a psychiatrist, but some people do detach from how they treat others to how, if something was to happen to them, how they would feel, but they don't understand the feelings of the person that they would do it to. So, yeah, it's just being a bit more mindful, that's all. So, we know one of the most famous biblical stories about, you know, greed and betrayal is Judas, and I will do a separate piece on Judas because I said I would. And obviously, you know, in Luke 22, he was driven by greed and betrayed Jesus for 30 pieces of silver. And obviously, there's the whole story as to why he did that. And but I will do a bit more on that. So, some of the biblical quotes that obviously relate to greed. Let's just go through some of them. So in Luke 12:15, and before I go into it, I kept hearing look around. So I don't know whether that's be mindful, you know, before you do whatever you're going to do, or just, yeah, look around. That's all I kept hearing. So anyway, Luke 12:15. Be on your guard against all kind of greed, for one's life does not consist in the abundance of possessions. 1 John 2:16. For everything in the world, the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life comes not from the Father, but from the world. And I think we've touched on that before, haven't we, where, you know, the world is a little bit man-made, isn't it? And that's on one of my other ones where I talk about some of the other things that I went through. 2 Corinthians 9:7. Each of you should give what you have decided, heart to give, not reluctantly or under compulsion, for God loves the cheerful giver. In other words, and I think I said that in the previous one, you know, he's there for the ones that show gratitude and thankful, but the ones that walk around in pride and are not grateful, then he doesn't really hold much for that. Ecclesiastes 5:10. Whoever loves money never has enough. Whoever loves wealth is never satisfied with their income. This too is meaningless. Now I'm going to have an example on that. Remember I talked about my book, and my book was stolen. That's me. And basically, I write about, it was never supposed to be published, to be fair. It was my little journal from my journey going through COVID. But one of the things that I will say now in reflection, it was scribed. So they were actually downloading the things they wanted me to put in it, because I guess that, you know, we know that nothing happens for a reason. And they obviously knew that it was going to get stolen, and they knew it was going to, whose hands it was going to get into, blah, 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 blah. You know, the story is, nothing happens for a reason. Anyway, the book is more around love. Why can't we all just be oneness? And obviously it was diluted into me being the devil for some unknown reason, but hey ho, it is what it is. Anyway, one of the things I propose to do with it is to do some stuff on YouTube with it, but also I will raise money for what I'm holding dear in my heart is the abuse and bullying. And not because I want to expose anyone, more because I just want to help as many people who have gone through similar, and show them that there is the light at the end of the tunnel. So You know, that's where something negative happens, you can always turn it into a positive, can't you? So that's me. Anyway, Hebrews 13:5. Keep your lives free from the love of money and be content with what you have, because God has said, never will I leave you, never will I forsake you. Now I'm going to explain something there, because one of the things that everybody seemed to have done, they came for my stability, right? And I think in one of the earlier ones I said you can have what you want, the universe is abundant. And they came for my stability. You know, in past years they've, you know, caused problems at my workplaces, and, you know, I've lost my jobs and stuff like that. You know, in innocent situations, i.e. redundancies, but you know that there's been some sort of malice there. Anyway, so sometimes what people don't realise when I talk about the universe's abundance, what you give, you get back. And God will always make sure that you've got your needs met. So for me, it's like when they came for my stability, you know, I obviously had to figure other things out, but God was still there for me. He still came through in other ways, and that's what I'm saying. So when people chase this big amount of money, God is always there for you. As long as you put in, you get out. Do you know what I mean? Matthew 6:24. No one can serve two masters. Either you will hate the one and love the other, or you will be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and money. And I think that just sort of reinstates what I've just said before. Proverbs 11:2-8. Those who trust in their riches will fall, but the righteous will thrive like a green leaf. There's quite a few actually, but we'll keep going. Proverbs 13:11. Dishonest money dwells away, but whoever gathers money little by little makes it grow. And now I think that relates a little bit to me, because obviously I had to sort of redirect everything again when they deleted the GoFundMe, because obviously I invested a lot on a lot of things to support a lot of people, and then when they deleted it, all the stuff that I'd printed and stuff, I had to, you know, make it go a little bit and do something different and make sure it didn't go to waste, because obviously we don't want to be wasteful. So yeah, what I'm sort of saying is, whatever the reason the person did that for, whether it was greed or anger or whatever, the knock-on effect wasn't just deleting the site, it was all the stuff that I'd invested in, and it was all the people that were relying on me to deliver what I promised, and I couldn't, because something had changed which was out of my control. And that's really where, you know, you have to think about intention, but actions have consequences. And I know some people don't think about other people, but hopefully people will learn going forward. Proverbs 14:31. Whoever oppresses the poor shows contempt for their maker, but whoever is kind to the needy honours God. Now that was something I said on the other one, wasn't it? Why is it that everyone could go into accommodation when we were in COVID, and now they're back on the street again? Excuse me. I'm going to iterate that. I noticed, and I think you have more spiritual eyes when you awaken, but I noticed how people snub homeless people, and I don't think they mean it maliciously, but I think there is a slight judgment there, and it just made me more aware of how we are. Now for me, I'm going to share my story. When whoever is out there that decided to tell everybody to don't help her, don't do this, don't speak to her, and people fell for it, my best friends were the homeless people. And I made some really nice connections with them, helping them and them helping me, because they looked beyond that, because their lives have been so challenged. They're not going to play someone's game in relation to hurting another human being when they're already suffering in silence, some of them, dealing with things like not having a roof over their head. So for me, it was so nice to just be around people that weren't looking at me like I've got 5 heads. So, I mean, take heed on that. And that's what I mean. you know, once when we go through things of challenge, and like I say, it could be their karma, you become humble. And I think to be grateful and to be humble goes a long way, and to say thank you goes a long way. And so for all the homeless guys out there, I know some of you are on me subscribes, thank you so much for looking after me, and not judging me, and just being kind. You know, that's what I want to say on that one. Proverbs 15:27. The greedy bring ruin to their households, but the one who hates something bribes will lie. I need to probably double check on that. My handwriting is terrible when I'm scribing. Proverbs 20, I'll put it in the thing. Proverbs 20:21. An inheritance claimed too soon will not be blessed at the end. Now, when I was writing that and I was scribbling it down, I kept hearing cursed. And so for me, you know, whatever's gone on with myself and the collective, I think when people steal things or take things that are not theirs, you have to remember that you take on a curse. Because while you're busy putting them out, you're also taking something that doesn't belong to you, and therefore the ancestors will curse it. So it's just a bit of mindfulness on that, because, you know, where there is what's known, there is destruction as well, isn't there? Proverbs 28:22. The stingy are eager to get rich and are unaware that poverty awaits them. I think that goes back to the inheritance, doesn't it? You know, if you're so quick to get rich, and like I said previously, the devil will give you what you want and he'll give it you fast. But all the things that he's doing behind the scenes to make sure you can't get out is just that. And also, you have to ask yourself, what lessons do you learn when you get fast gratification from the devil? When you're with God, you learn a lot of lessons, and you take a lot of losses. You know, I've lived in a caravan on someone's drive, but people wouldn't know that, but I have. You know what I mean? So, and it wasn't necessarily my karma, it was other people messing in my Akashic records. So, but like I said, God allowed it because, you know, he wanted me to learn how to get over that line. But that's what I mean. So, you know, always be mindful, because just because you get it doesn't mean you're going to keep it, and then, you know, poverty awaits. So I think for me, one of the things around greed, that we do live in the world where everybody wants everything. And, you know, I've lived that life, you know, the karmic life of, you know, getting the bag. I mean, you know, when I look through, when we were in COVID and I looked through all the stuff I had, half of it I hadn't worn, and some of it, you know, I'd be in the city centre, I'd buy something, and then I'd get home and I'd probably got another 2 of them. So it's just being mindful, really, and understanding that, you know, yes, it's nice to have it, but do we need it? And now I'm more likely to consider what can I do with that money if I've got a bit extra. And somebody asked me about my table. So the reason why I don't have a table, I did have a table, but the reason why I don't have a table is because I was in the process of wanting to do stuff with my house, obviously. And some of the big items, I just thought it'd be easier to give it to those that need it, you know. And I can sit with my laptop on my leg for a while. So yeah, that type of stuff. So I just thought I'd drop on. I'm not saying you've got to listen to what, you know, you've got to believe it, you just do what you want, but look at scripture, you know, hopefully it goes in your heart a little bit as to when you do things, just one thought, you know, thoughts, words and actions, because it goes a long way. And obviously everything does go into your Akashic records at the end of the day, even what we think, actions and words. So before I go, I just want to show you my egg cleanse. I did do it on the previous one, but it cut off. So I don't know if you can see that there. So I had to have a couple of baths, cleanse the house, clean the house. I mean, obviously there's a little bit of stuff all over the place, but I can't really do much about that. And you know, just cleanse just to get rid. But I mean, obviously I've had to do a couple of egg cleanses as well, but that's evil eye. So, but I think we all know that that's been, you know, thrown out a little bit on top of everything else. I think we all know that that's happening. Oh, the other thing I wanted to show you, my clouds. You know, I said I love my clouds. And this is in my book as well. So let me show you my clouds. And tell me if you can see anything there. I absolutely love clouds. When I was a child, I had cloud wallpaper. And I'm going to play this a little bit as well and see, because I said to you about the music, and see if, let me have a look. Let me play this. I don't want to play too much because I don't know how much you're allowed to play on here, but how cool. Just something slightly different to the other stuff. Now, before I go, I have got the cards here as well. So I was just messing with the cards because I was asking the questions around, you know, the previous thing, and what popped out was this. Sorry, it just cut off then, I don't know why, but I'll piece it together. So the cards, I was messing with the cards because I was asking some questions about some things, and the cards that popped out straight away. Now, while I was sitting there just in contemplation, I kept getting this cold air all around me, and obviously that's somebody's spirit, and you know, and I always sort of try and clarify who it is and whatever. Now obviously we all know that the towers have hit a little bit, and obviously, you know, I still pray for their souls. I don't wish, but obviously, you know, you reap what you sow, and it's God's way, isn't it? So anyway, the cards dropped out, and this is what came out. There was heartbreak, the High Priestess, defending the past. Now it could be heartbreak because I didn't use their intuition, and defending the past, over a past marriage. Remember, someone's stressed because judgment got called. They regret taking the cup now, like we've said before. Is it regret or is it remorse? But either way, you know, hopefully, you know, whatever the lesson they're having to learn, they learn it and you don't repeat it. Because that's the whole point, isn't it, of closing cycles. The karma, because of greed. So obviously, we've talked greed, we've talked some of the Bible references, and that's obviously what they wanted me to share. Now, some other ones did come out, but I think that was because the greed one actually popped out on top of the heart. So yeah, I think that's, you know, people are probably in a lot of reflection at the minute because I'm getting a lot of air around me. And I'll talk more about energy in other ones, because there was other things when we were in the eye of the storm. Some of the things that got sent to me, and some of the smells and the stenches that I had at the side of me, and you wouldn't believe it. But anyway, I am sure I'm not the only one. I'm not the only one. But as you ascend, as your senses get higher and higher, you start to see and smell things. And it's funny because once you're awakened, you can't go back to sleep, and it doesn't matter how much spell work they throw at you to try and block you. And you know, I just find other ways. Because the other day, I went to the supermarket and I got my receipt, and it came up on the till 444. So they talk to you however they need to talk to you and whenever they need to talk to you. So it doesn't really matter what you're throwing out. I'm connected, and the cycle's closed. 999. We're in a new cycle now. So it is what it is. But anyway, I'm going to sign off. I love everybody and I'll leave you, and I'll Speak to you soon. See you later. Bye.